always look up a lot when I'm doing these videos, and that's because I am using a very large monitor on my computer. And so I apologize for that. I've tried to get it so that I can have it down closer to where I can see the notes and not, but anyways, there's no way around it, I guess. But the story today is called The Great Serpent of Canandaigua Lake, the Indian Python. And let's go ahead and just get right into it, okay? Upon the little brow of Canandaigua Hill that looks down upon the beautiful waters of Canandaigua, there dwelt for many years the founders of the Seneca Nation, and no hostile tribe here disturbed their quiet pursuits, and in peace the years passed by, while their families rapidly increased in numbers, and prosperity seemed to attend all of their walks in life. Now, one day, some of the children were playing without the rude palisade that surrounded the town, found and brought within the precincts of the village a serpent, very small, very beautiful, and apparently quite harmless. Loved by the young and cherished by the old, the serpent remained and grew so rapidly indeed that the boys were unable to furnish it sufficient food. And the hunters of the tribe day by day gave it some portion of the results of their chase. Now, this kindly cared for, it soon became very strong and roamed about the forest and plunged into the lake in quest of its own food. And finally, it so thrived as to become of such enormous length that it was able to encircle the entire hill. A big snake. Having attained this marvelous size, it began to manifest an irascible and wicked disposition, and this so frequently that the people began to feel alarmed for their personal safety. At length, oppressed with fear that if they did not actually consume them, it would, by its monstrous consumption of game, soon reduce the tribe to starvation, and it was resolved in deliberate council that this serpent must die. Now, the early morning of the day following the council was fixed upon for its destruction, but when the day dawned, the affrighted people found the monstrous reptile stretching its full length around the hill, enclosing the whole town and debarring every avenue of escape, while at the gate it reared its threatening head with jaws wide open, as ready to devour whoever approached it. Vigorously did the whole tribe assail it, but neither arrows nor spears could make to penetrate its shining scales. Then some of the people, frightened and trembling, endeavored to escape by climbing over its body, but they were thrown back and rolled upon and crushed to death. Others frantically rushed to its very jaws with their weapons, but these were instantly devoured. Overwhelmed with terror, the remaining people recoiled and did not renew the attack until hunger gave them the courage for a desperate assault, in which all were swallowed except one woman and her 2 children, who escaped into the forest while the monster, gorged by its usual food, was asleep. In the recesses of the wood, her place of concealment, the woman instructed by a vision to make arrows of peculiar form and taught how to use them effectually for the killing of the serpent. Thus equipped, she sought the sleeping foe, and drawing her bow, she sped an arrow straight into its heart. Writhing in its death struggles, lashing the hill with its enormous tail, the serpent tore deep gullies in the earth, and as it rolled down the hill, broke huge trees that with rocks and stones fell into the lake, in which, with frightful contortions, the hissing snake plunged when disgorging its human victims with a great convulsive throw, and it sank slowly from sight. Rejoiced at the death of the dreadful enemy, the women hastened with the children to the banks of the Canandaigua Lake, and from her children sprang the powerful Seneca Nation. Serpents of vast size are said to have their abode in the larger lakes and rivers. A tradition relates that there lived a gigantic serpent in the Mississippi near Fox River, which at one time paid a visit to the Great Lakes, and in passing thither made a trail, the line of which became the basin of the former river. The Nevada Indians have the pretty myth that the rainbow is indeed actually a serpent whose shiny scales are its colors. Mrs. Powell states that The Shoshone Indian depicts the heavenly firmament domed with ice. A serpent god coils his back against the ice, and with his scales abrades it, occasioning ice dust to fall upon the earth, which is the snow of winter and the rain of summer. This figure that I'm hopefully showing you right now of a thing like that, is the representation of the sky in the Shoshone pictography, and appears to portray the upward curve of the body of the serpent when in motion. It is not impossible that this device is suggested by the rainbow, which the savage identified with his serpent god. The radiations of the bright arch resembled indeed the shifting changes of the beautiful scales of the serpent. The Indian believed, as did the Hindu, that animals were a manifested part of God, that he should have a reverence for the species of animal, surpassing that for any other appears rational. And we find that the serpent occupying a place in the story of creation, it is used in divination and worshipped as the sacred feast. Yum yum. It is probable that this reverence arose from his It is probable that this reverence arose from his belief in a spirit of fire, and that fiery dart in the form of a serpent dropping to the earth would appear to be representative of the power of the source of life, or that life itself in a divine degree. It appears that in accordance with the belief of the descent of a divine serpent of fire, that spiritual fire was arranged as part of the worship in the rotunda of a town built and inhabited by the Cherokee tribes mentioned elsewhere. Now, the rite of sacrifice to the moon was regulated by the appearance of, or non-appearance of, the halo around the planet, which was regarded as the circling body of a fiery serpent. Never thought of that. That's kind of cool. Natural objects are the only available image of spiritual thought and aspiration. Conceptions of divine truth arise through and are expressed by these images. The more copious are these expressions, the greater wealth of thought afforded to the poet Shakespeare. We say he had a wonderful imagination, showing by the word itself the natural source of the highest expression of the human mind. Now, in considering the religions of our Native American people, in which are their ideas of supernatural life, we should regard this law governing all languages. The Indian pictured both a serpent and a bird in connection with his symbol of the sun, as did the Egyptian. We perceive the origin of the use of the serpent. It was formed from observation of the appearance of natural phenomena, the forked lightning and the radiant coil of the halo, both equally giving origin to this sacred image. But there seems to be little in common between this species of animals and the bird, except the magic power of locomotion. In the pictography of the Indians, a device for a sacred bird bears some resemblance to a swan. It is already stated that the supreme deity was portrayed as clothed in red down. Swan's down was placed in the sacred depository, and warriors were decorated with it at the sacred feast. Of the habits of the swan, we learned that when on its annual flight to a warmer climate, it rises to the height of 3 or 4 miles and is seen only against the sky as mere speck. A flock of these birds wavering this way and that from head to terminal point, from leader to the last swan of the procession, mark a serpentine line and resemble an aerial serpent moving across the heavens. It is possible that from observation of this transmutation, and at the same time regarding the transformation of other objects in nature and their metamorphosis as the transmigration of the souls of the objects, the Native American Indian drew the inference that these birds were merged into the form of a serpent in their flight, and the season of their migration would imply a connection with and relation to the sun, to whom, therefore, they were made sacred, becoming an emblem of the power and divinity resident in or ruler of that planet. This might be equally true in relation to the eagle and hawk, whose strong wings bear them near the sun place. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I think it's a really interesting legend and some historical information as to why these Native American people felt the way they did and saw what they did in nature. I messed up and I called the Indian savage because that's what they're called in the text. But usually when I see them referred to as savages in the text of anything, I change it to Native American or American Indian, because they were far from just mere savages. Hope you've enjoyed this story, and I'll be back with you again real soon, God willing. Love you all very much on the other side of that monitor. God bless you all. See you soon.